Alright everybody, so the Boston Massacre happened. Now we got to talk about what the colonists are going to do now. Okay, so they have to make a decision. Are they going to, keep things the way that they are, try to stay peaceful, make sure that nobody else dies, or are they going to try to fight back? Okay? So, today we're going to do is talk about what the colonists will do next. So, now we have two options. We talked about there were kind of two options yesterday. After the Boston Massacre, two things that the colonists could do. They could want to, aim for peace. To say, you know what, King? Sorry, we understand you're very mad. We know you're mad. You came over and 5 colonists died. You sent the soldiers over and something bad happened. So we're sorry. Let's try to stay peaceful. Okay, so a few things that they can do. Oops, let me change the font color here. So, first thing that they can do. Colonists can try to make the king happy. Right? So, the colonists can say, you know what, King? So sorry. We won't complain anymore. We won't, fight back. We won't throw your stuff in the ocean. We won't do that stuff anymore. Right. Another thing that they can do. They can keep paying the taxes, right? All those crazy taxes that the king gave them that are making a lot of colonists upset. What they can do to just keep the peace and make sure that nobody else dies, they can just keep paying them, right? Just keep giving money to the king. Right. The last thing, another way for peace, they can give up on trying to make things better. All right, so if you need to pause here and copy that down. So the three things that if they want to keep peace, what they would do is they can, try to make the king happy. You know what? You are our king. We're sorry if you are upset. Sorry, that sound was my cat, Finn. He's running around being crazy tonight. So the colonists can do three things to try to keep the peace, right? They can try to make the king happy. They can keep paying those taxes that he's giving them. And they can continue to, give up. They can give up on making things better for themselves. Okay? Now, the other option is war. Okay? They can decide to fight back. So, if they choose to do war, here's what they need to do. So first, if they're going to fight a war, the first thing you need to fight a war is obviously an army, right? Now they need to be able to make an army, right? So right now, technically, they're part of Britain. The king is their leader, and so the army that is there to protect them are the British soldiers. Obviously, that's a little bit funny because the British soldiers just came to the colonies and killed 5 people, and so it doesn't really seem like they're there to protect them. And so the colonists need to make their own army, right? Okay. Next thing, they need to make sure, that is not how you spell sure, 13 colonies are on board. Okay, on board it just means that they agree that they also want to do the same thing. Okay, so, if in Boston, in Massachusetts, where the Boston Massacre happened, if that colony was like, you know what, yeah, let's go to war, one colony is not going to be able to beat the entire British army. Remember, the British army just fought in a world war, all over the world, right? They have a lot of soldiers that can go all over the world, right? And so if just one colony decided to go up against the British soldiers, they would be smashed instantly. It would be a very short war, right? So we need to make sure that all 13 colonies agreed that they were going to war. Otherwise, it was going to be a very challenging fight to win. Okay? And the last thing that they need to decide, what would happen if they won? Right? If they won, would they tell the king, like, hey, we won in the war, guess what? Those taxes, no more. All those terrible things you wanted us to do, we're not going to do them anymore. Or would they say, hey, we won the war, let's just make our own country. Let's stay away from the king. He's not our leader anymore. Let's make our own leader. Okay? So these are the two options. Peace. They can try to, have as few people die as possible, just kind of give in and say, okay, king, sorry, we know you're mad, we know you sent the British soldiers over here, we will not complain anymore. Or they can fight back, right? And they need to make sure that if they do fight back, they have their own army, very important. Make sure, that they have all 13 colonies on board to help. And then they need to decide what's going to happen if they win. Right? Are they going to still be part of Britain, but, be able to have more decision-making instead of just the king? Or are they going to just completely leave Britain and start their own country? Have to make that decision. All right, now last thing. So if you need to pause here and copy things down, you absolutely can. Last thing that we're going to do here for today. So the last thing that happened after the Boston Massacre, people that lived in the 13 colonies, the colonists, they got split into 3 different groups. They had to make a decision. How did they feel, right? What was their opinion? Okay, so there were the patriots, the fence sitters, and the loyalists. Okay, fence sitters is not like it's kind of just a made-up term that we use for people. They did not call themselves the fence sitters back then. Back in the 1770s, though, people did call themselves patriots, and they did call themselves loyalists. Okay, so here is let's talk really quickly about what these 3 different groups were. The patriots. These were people that did not want the king to be their leader. Okay, so the patriots were the group of people that were like, wow, that king over there, terrible. He has no idea what we want. What does he know anyways? He's all the way across the ocean, right? We don't need him. Let's do something else. Let's try something else. Let's see if we can maybe break away from Britain. Okay. We're going to skip fence sitters. We'll come back to them. Loyalists, they're the opposite of the patriots, okay? So these, not geese, these were the people. Man, I'm having a tough time typing today. These were the people that wanted to stay with Britain and the king. Okay. So loyalists, they were different. And the word loyal means to, not leave someone, to be very, to not give up on someone. And so these loyalists, they were loyal to the king, right? They didn't want to leave him. And so these are the people that said, you know what? Yeah, sure, I don't like paying taxes, but that is our king. They're helping us in some ways. They protected us during the 7 Years' War. We even helped them, but, we're still part of Britain. Okay, so that's the loyalists. The fence sitters, the reason why they're in the middle is because they haven't decided. The undecided. Okay, so the fence sitters are the people that just don't really know yet. They don't know, if they want to be part of the patriots, if they want to break away from Britain and get away from the king, or if they were like, you know what, maybe it's best if we stay part of Britain. They haven't decided it. Okay. All right, so if you need to copy that down, you can do that. You can pause right now. The last thing we're going to do here on this page is we're going to put the numbers of people that were in each group. We're going to find pictures of those people. Then I have a video for you that I want you to watch when we're all done. So, last, we're going to talk about the percentages of these folks here. All right. So first, Patriots. This was 50. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, 50% of colonists. Okay, so half of the colonists that lived in the 13 colonies. Half of the people that lived in the colonies were patriots. They wanted to get away from the king. Okay, so next, the fence sitters, the people that were still undecided. That was 20%. Of colonists, so 20% of the colonists, so a much smaller number than the patriots that were still undecided. And now these 20% in the next couple of years will make a decision. Right now it's at 20%. Usually, so what's going to happen is as we get closer to this war we're going to talk about, most of these people pick a side. All right, we can probably say that half go to the patriot side, half go to the loyalist side. All right. Then last, the loyalists. So if we're looking at numbers here, all that's left are the 30% of colonists were loyalists. Okay, so not as big as the patriot side, right? A lot of patriots over in the colonists or in this side over here, but a little bit more than the people that were still undecided. So 30% of colonists were loyalists, believed that they wanted to stay with the king. All right, last thing we're going to do is we're going to find pictures for these folks. All right, so we're going to look up patriots. Now, if we look up patriots, right, look at this football team, right? So what the Patriots are is they're a football team. What's kind of interesting is, you know, one of the most important things about the American Revolution was the Boston Massacre, right? Now, the Boston Massacre obviously happened in Boston, and the Patriots play in Boston, Massachusetts. Kind of cool, right? So, it's a football team. We're not going to worry about the football team. Patriots, we're going to look up colonists. Okay, so here is what we always call the Patriots. Okay, we call them the Blue Coats. Okay, we call them the Blue Coats because their uniforms were blue. Okay, so the colonists, or excuse me, the Patriots got these blue coats on here. Now, this flag back here is the United States flag. Obviously, it's our American flag. Remember that back in the 1770s, there was no United States yet. That flag had not yet been created. Okay, we'll talk more about who created the American flag once we talk about the United States of America, right? Once we became our own country, after all of this, we had to have a flag. And we were not quite there yet, and so this is a little bit of fast forwarding. All right, next, fence sitter. So what we'll do is we'll say sitting on a fence. Okay, so we'll just use one of these kind of weird pictures here, one of these stock pictures. Okay, now when we say fence sitter, we don't literally mean that they were sitting on a fence, right? They were all sitting there waiting to choose a side. It's a metaphor. So it is when, you know, you could choose one side or the other. You can be on the Patriots or the Loyalists, or if you're not quite ready to pick a side yet, you sit on that fence that's in the middle, and you're still waiting to make a decision. Okay, so it's not literally that they were sitting on a fence. We just call them the fence sitters, because like look at this guy here, right? So let's act like one side over here are the Patriots, one side are the Loyalists. He hasn't made a decision yet. All right, I'm gonna pick this one here. This is what it means to sit on a fence. You're still deciding. All right, you can pick any one of these pictures here. Some of these I have no idea what's going on. If that's a tennis ball or a lime, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's what sitting on the fence means. So put that picture here. Not quite the middle, but that's okay. And then last, we'll do Loyalists. Loyalists, they were people that usually, when it came down to the war, they were the ones that fought for the British, and they wore red coats. Okay, they wore red coats. So I'm going to copy this image here, put it over here on the slides. You can pick any image as long as they're wearing red. That is usually, when we think of the Loyalists, those are their colors. All right, so those are the Patriots, fence sitters, Loyalists. People got to make a decision now. How do they feel about the king? Last thing I want you to do for today, there's a video here. If you click on it, it's Loyalists versus the Patriots, kind of talking about what you can kind of relate it to everyday life. All right, if you have any questions, ask Miss Fee.